I've lived this life twice and lost both times. But this time, I'm not playing the same game. It was a humid summer morning in Charleston, South Carolina, when the doorbell rang and everything changed. I was 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen counter eating cereal, legs swinging when I saw her. A tiny girl with sad eyes, clinging to a teddy bear that looked more worn out than she did. Her name was Lily Cooper. And she wasn't just visiting, she was moving in. Mom crouched down and gently hugged her. "From now on, this is your home, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft as velvet. "You'll be the youngest in the Monroe family. Alice and James are your new siblings." Lily's parents, my mom's sister and brother-in-law, had just died in a terrible car accident. As if that wasn't tragic enough, Lily also had a congenital heart defect, the kind that made adults instantly soften. And just like that, my family's center of gravity shifted. Back then, I didn't know how to process it. All I saw was the way my mom cradled Lily in her arms, the exact same way she used to cradle me. Something tightened in my chest, but I didn't cry. Not this time. James, my older brother, leaned against the banister with his usual too-cool expression. "She's kinda cute," he said with a shrug. "Like a baby bunny or something." "Yeah, a bunny with claws," I thought to myself, but I didn't say it out loud. My mom must have noticed the look on my face because she walked over and knelt in front of me. She held my hand in one of hers and Lily's in the other. "Lily's heart condition means she needs special care. Alice, you're the big sister now, okay? That means being patient and kind." I nodded, but I didn't feel okay. I felt replaced. For the rest of the day, everyone fawned over Lily. James offered her his favorite snacks, Dad carried her to her new room, and Mom braided her hair like it was the most precious thing she'd ever touched. At dinner, I sat quietly, poking at my food while Lily told a story about her old school and burst into tears halfway through. James reached over to hand her a napkin like a knight in shining armor. Mom and Dad looked at me, expecting me to comfort her. I didn't. I wouldn't. Back in my room, I stared at the ceiling, remembering how in my past life I'd fought tooth and nail for love that was never really mine. I'd shouted, I'd cried, I'd begged for fairness. And what did that get me? Loneliness. Rejection. Even my fiancé had left me for her. This time would be different. I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't cry, and I definitely wouldn't fight for anyone's affection. If love in this house came with conditions, then I was done trying to meet them. That night, I set my alarm 2 hours earlier than usual. If no one was going to make me feel valued, I'd find value elsewhere. In books, in knowledge, in success, because everything else might betray me, but knowledge never would. They said it was my special day. They lied. It was supposed to be simple, just a small trip to Magnolia Theme Park, a birthday tradition I'd looked forward to since I could remember. But this year, things were different. This year, Lily was part of the family. I'd spent the whole week preparing. I even closed my textbooks for once and let myself be excited. I told myself it didn't matter if Mom was busy helping Lily pick out clothes or if Dad forgot to ask what ride I wanted to go on first. It was still my day. But the moment we passed through the park gates, Lily clutched her chest and collapsed like a dying swan straight into Dad's arms. "Lily!" Mom screamed, rushing back toward us with James on her heels. I just stood there. "She's having an episode," Dad said, panicked. "Call the driver, we're going to the hospital now." No one looked at me. No one asked if I was okay. I watched them carry her out, James running ahead, Mom whispering soothing things into her ear. They disappeared as quickly as they'd come. Then came the cherry on top. Mom turned to me with that gentle tone I used to love but now recognized as condescension wrapped in sugar. "Alice, I'm so sorry, honey. Lily needs us right now. How about we come back another day and celebrate, just you and me?" I didn't answer. She waited a few seconds. When I stayed silent, she patted my shoulder and followed the others out of the park. And just like that, I was alone. On my own birthday, I tossed my bunny ear headband onto the pavement. The breeze flipped it once before it landed in a puddle of melted slushy. Somehow, it looked more festive than I felt. I called a cab and went home. No one called to check on me. No one texted. I sat on the living room sofa for hours, staring at the door like a fool. The shadows stretched across the room, long and silent. Eventually, Ms. Vickers, the housekeeper, tiptoed in with a dinner tray and a face full of worry. I didn't scream at her this time. I just ate a few bites and went upstairs. By the time they returned the next morning, Lily was miraculously fine, glowing like she'd been kissed by angels instead of strapped to an EKG all night. Everyone surrounded her like she was the sun. Even James offered her his sweatshirt. No one noticed me standing in the corner of the foyer, watching. Dad turned halfway toward me. "Alice, sweetheart, I know yesterday was rough. But Lily's condition. She has Dad, she has James." I cut him off. "She didn't need you, I did." He blinked, speechless. Mom tried to smile. "We'll make it up to you. Next week we can." "No," I said, "don't bother." Because this wasn't about one missed birthday. It was about every moment I'd watched my place in this family be quietly handed off to someone else. They wanted peace, I'd give them peace. The kind that comes from silence. I retreated upstairs and buried myself in textbooks. Algebra, anatomy, philosophy. I wasn't just studying, I was escaping. Let Lily have their sympathy. I didn't need it. I needed Harvard. Some girls grow up dreaming about their engagement. I grew up trying to avoid mine. It was New Year's Eve, and the Monroe family had been invited to the annual winter gala hosted by the Prescott and Carter families. Old money, old traditions. Every family had a role to play. And mine, the girl everyone thought was destined to marry Ethan Prescott. Ethan had been promised to me since we were toddlers, two powerful families keeping wealth in the circle. I never loved him, but I used to believe he was mine, until Lily smiled at him. One smile. That was all it took. We walked into the ballroom, its golden chandeliers sparkling like 1,000 eyes watching me. Everyone wore tuxedos and champagne-colored gowns. Lily, of course, arrived looking like a porcelain angel in a soft pink dress that practically screamed, "I'm delicate, protect me." And Ethan fell for it, hard. He followed her around all night, like a dog off-leash. I saw it, and so did Ryan Carter. Ryan and I had grown up together. He was the boy next door who knew all my secrets. The one person I didn't have to pretend with. The one who never fell for Lily's act. I was standing alone near the dessert table, ignoring the champagne flutes and smiling at no one, when Ryan showed up beside me. "Your fiancé's got his eyes glued to your sister." "She's not my sister," I replied without looking at him. He raised an eyebrow. "Still your fiancé, though." I shrugged, only on paper. Ryan leaned in, his voice low. "Want me to go punch him?" That actually made me laugh, a small, bitter sound. What good would that do? I don't even care enough to be jealous. "You used to care about everything," he said quietly. "Yeah, used to," I replied, taking a sip of my untouched drink. Across the room, Ethan leaned down and whispered something to Lily. She blushed, and my stomach turned, not from heartbreak, but from how predictable it all was. Later that night, after the toasts and fake smiles, my parents pulled me aside. "Alice, sweetie," Mom said, her voice coated in sweetness, "we think maybe it's time to reconsider the engagement." "You mean cancel it?" No, she rushed to say. "Just maybe let Ethan and Lily figure out what they want. Love can't be forced. But arranged marriages can." I shot back. Dad sighed. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Ethan cares for you, just maybe not in the way we hoped." The way they hoped. I crossed my arms, pretending to think it over, then I smiled. "Fine, let them have each other." They both looked surprised, relieved even. "Really?" Mom asked. "Really," I said, "call it growth, call it letting go." But inside, I was smiling for a different reason. Let her take the spotlight. I wasn't fighting for crumbs anymore, I was building a feast of my own. Later that evening, Ryan found me on the terrace. "So you really let him go?" he asked, eyes searching mine. "Yep," I said simply. He grinned. "Good, now you're officially free." He didn't say for me, but I heard it anyway. And for the first time in 3 lifetimes, I felt free too. Let her take the spotlight. I was busy building the stage. By the time Lily and Ethan's engagement became public, I had already finished high school and passed the SATs with a score no one in the Monroe household even bothered to ask about. No surprise there. They were too busy helping Lily pick a dress for her engagement photo shoot. Ryan and I had quietly moved to Boston for college. He got into MIT. I got into Harvard. We didn't live together, but we might as well have. Our startup was gaining traction, our late nights blurred between code, coffee, and quiet glances I wasn't ready to return. Not yet. I told myself I needed time. But the truth was, I wasn't sure I believed in love anymore. Not after watching how easily mine was discarded twice. Still, we stayed close. Ryan never pushed. He waited, and I kept working. One afternoon in late March, Mom called. "Sweetheart," she said, overly cheerful, which was always a red flag. "We'd love for you to come home for your 18th birthday. We're planning a lovely celebration." I hesitated. Is this another one of those shared birthdays? Because if Lily's planning to collapse again halfway through the cake. "Alice," she cut in, already defensive. "Don't start. Just come home, okay? We miss you." They missed their narrative. That was what they missed. I agreed, not because I wanted to, but because I had a plan. The party was held at a country club just outside Charleston. The guest list read like a registry of Southern aristocracy. I arrived late on purpose, slipping in through the side gate while the string quartet played something obnoxiously cheerful. And of course, Lily was there, center stage again, even though it was my day. Wearing a lilac dress, her face pale, her voice soft, she looked like a dying princess out of a Victorian novel. She clutched Ethan's arm as he introduced her to guest after guest like she were the bride of the season. And maybe she was. I made it exactly 23 minutes before the inevitable happened. "My chest, it hurts," Lily whimpered, collapsing like clockwork. Ethan caught her just in time. Dad shouted for someone to bring the car around. Mom was already dialing the hospital. James looked like he'd just watched a Greek tragedy unfold. I stood at the bar and sipped ginger ale. No one asked if I was okay. No one remembered who the party was really for. But I didn't panic, I didn't cry, I didn't even flinch. Instead, I stood tall and began to speak. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice carrying through the shocked murmurs. "As you can see, this is not your average birthday. But I hope you enjoy the hors d'oeuvres, and don't forget to grab a party favor on the way out." The crowd chuckled, unsure whether I was joking. I was. Lily was carted away once again, and just like every milestone before this one, she stole the spotlight and the sympathy. They thought I surrendered. I just changed the rules. News of Lily and Ethan's wedding exploded in Charleston society like it was the event of the decade. Local magazines ran their engagement photos, her in white lace, him in navy blue, their hands intertwined like a love story carved into marble. To most, it looked like a fairy tale. To me, it looked like an open door. While they busied themselves planning the floral arrangements, I was securing investment deals in New York. Ryan and I had just wrapped our second round of venture funding and were preparing to launch an education tech startup. He joked about calling it Unlearn, because sometimes you had to unlearn who you were taught to be in order to become who you really were. Fitting, I hadn't planned to attend the wedding, but then I got a message from an anonymous email. "Want to return the favor? I've got a story you'll love to hear." Attached were screenshots. Ethan, a woman, hotel receipts, ultrasound scans. I smiled. It took 2 days to find the woman, 3 to persuade her, and 1 to book her a front row seat at the rehearsal dinner. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Prescott family estate, an absurdly large property just outside the city, filled with too many chandeliers and not enough soul. I arrived late again, this time dressed to kill. Ryan walked beside me in a tailored black suit. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked. "I'm not doing anything," I said smoothly. "I'm just here to watch." The moment we entered, heads turned. Even Lily froze mid-toast, her flute of champagne halfway to her lips. Ethan's smile faltered. I walked over and politely kissed Mom and Dad on the cheek. "Lovely night, isn't it?" Before anyone could respond, a voice cut through the music. "Ethan Prescott, the woman said, stepping forward in a red dress that practically bled confidence. "I believe you remember me, and our baby." The room went silent. Lily's glass shattered on the floor. Gasps. Whispers. One of the Prescott aunts fainted into a chair. I didn't move. Ethan stammered something unintelligible while the woman pulled out a folder of papers: paternity test appointments, doctor letters, hotel invoices. It was glorious. Lily burst into tears. Ethan tried to deny it. The bride-to-be ran out of the room, her veil of innocence finally cracking under the weight of truth. And me, I reached for a canapé and popped it in my mouth. Ryan leaned over. "That was evil." "That was justice," I corrected. The wedding was canceled. The story leaked. Ethan's father pulled funding from his business. His reputation went down faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. Lily, for the first time in years, had nothing to say. And me, I didn't look back. I had bigger things to build. Weeks later, Ryan took me to a rooftop restaurant in Manhattan. The night skyline shimmered behind him like a silent promise. When dessert arrived, so did a small velvet box. "Marry me," he said, kneeling on one knee. "Not for our families, not for appearances, just for us." For a second, I couldn't breathe. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because, for the first time in 3 lives, I had no fear about giving it. "Yes," I whispered, because this time the love was real, and this time the win was mine. Everything she stole was built on borrowed time, and time just ran out. After the wedding disaster, Lily and Ethan tried to save face by keeping up appearances. They held a small civil ceremony, no guests, no press, just 2 people clinging to a fantasy already cracked at the seams. But life doesn't let lies live long. Rumors spread quickly in Charleston. The affair, the baby that mysteriously never existed, Ethan's sudden drop from a top investors list. No one said it outright, but everyone knew. The Prescotts were crumbling, and so was their golden couple. I didn't have to lift a finger. The storm was already coming. Back in Boston, Ryan and I were busier than ever. Our startup, Unlearn, was booming. We'd just been featured in Forbes Under 30, and I was asked to speak at an education conference in San Francisco. The girl who used to cry in her bedroom over forgotten birthdays, she was gone. But I hadn't forgotten everything. One afternoon, as I stepped out of a pitch meeting, I got a message from my private contact. Just a single line: "Lily S. been kicked out." Turns out, Ethan had enough. Between late-night accusations, constant sobbing, and her inability to have children, he snapped. His mother, who never liked Lily to begin with, used it as an excuse to force her out of their home. Cold, clinical, no apologies. Lily tried moving in with her own family, my family, but they were in no position to help. The Monroes had quietly transferred all the remaining assets to me 2 years ago when they tried to win me back. I never returned a cent. I kept it all, not out of greed but out of strategy, because I knew this day would come. The day Lily had no one left, she sold off her jewelry, liquidated the last of her wedding gifts, moved into a cheap apartment across town. Ethan never officially divorced her, but he stopped coming home. The girl who once stood under crystal chandeliers, stealing glances and affection, now waited in food bank lines with oversized sunglasses and a bent umbrella. Ryan asked me if I felt sorry for her. "No," I said, but it wasn't entirely true. Not sorry, just tired. I had watched her lie, cry, and manipulate her way through 3 lifetimes of mine. Always the victim, always the center. And me, always the villain for standing up, until now. Now I was the only one standing. Later that week, Ryan handed me a thick envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "A deed," he said, "to the Monroe family estate. You own it now, officially." I blinked. I thought we already. We did, but it's finalized. No more shadows of the past haunting you there. It's yours, or you can sell it, burn it, whatever you want. I ran my hand over the envelope and smiled faintly. "I think I'm ready to let it go," I said, and I meant it. The next day, I signed the final document transferring ownership to a charity for foster youth. The same house that tried to break me would now shelter kids who actually needed love, not lies. By evening, I received one more message. Lily Monroe admitted to Charleston General, heart failure, critical condition. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed the tab. I didn't go that night, but I knew I'd see her one last time. She spent her whole life trying to win. But by the time she realized the prize wasn't worth it, it was already over. I didn't rush to the hospital when I got the message. It took me 2 days. 2 full days of board meetings, investor calls, and keynote rehearsals. And when I finally walked through the sterile halls of Charleston General, I did it in silence. Not out of cruelty, but because I had no more anger left. No fire, just closure. Lily was in the cardiac ICU, pale and thinner than I remembered. Her hair looked brittle, her lips were chapped, and her skin, once glowing with carefully crafted innocence, was gray and tired. For a moment, she didn't even see me walk in, but when she did, her eyes watered. "Alice." I said nothing. I pulled the chair close and sat beside her bed. She stared at the ceiling. "They're all gone. Ethan, his family. Even your parents stopped answering my calls." I didn't flinch. "You burned every bridge you ever crossed." She coughed. "I didn't mean to, I wanted to be loved." I looked at her, and for the first time in 3 lifetimes, I didn't see a villain. I saw a little girl, lost, desperate, and hollow. But that didn't make her innocent. "You had it," I said. "You had love from my family, from Ethan. You just wanted mine, too." She turned her head slowly. "You had everything." "No," I said calmly. "I earned everything. That's the part you never understood." Tears ran down her cheeks. She clutched at her hospital gown like it could hold her together. "I'm scared." I didn't hold her hand. I didn't wipe her tears. But I stayed. Because even if she didn't deserve my comfort, I deserved peace. Her breathing slowed. And then she whispered, "You won." "No," I said gently. I walked away. Those were the last words she heard. Outside the hospital, the evening sun painted the sky in gold and amber. As I stepped into the parking lot, my phone buzzed. "Ryan, come home. I have something for you." When I opened the door to our condo, the entire living room was filled with soft candlelight and crimson roses. Ryan stood in the center, wearing the same crooked smile he always had when he was nervous. He dropped to one knee again, but this time there was no velvet box, just a key. "To our future," he said. "No more ghosts, no more borrowed time." I smiled. Only real love. He pulled me into a hug, and for the first time in all my lives, I let myself be held without looking over my shoulder. Lily Monroe was buried 3 days later. Small service. Fewer than 10 people. No press. No one cried loudly. No dramatic speeches. Just quiet dirt, quiet prayers, and a quiet ending. Fitting. She built her entire life trying to be chosen,